it's Katrina and I'm doing my first quarter wrap up. Right at the start of the year, when I set out my goals for 2017, I said I won't be really doing any wrap ups, I'm not going to be doing any TBRs really, because I set my goal at 24 books for the whole year, and so far this year I've been doing individual review videos for most of the books I've been reading. So all of those reviews will be linked below if you'd like to go check them out, or you can find them on my channel. But I missed talking about books as a group, or talking about multiple books in the one video, ranking them against one another, that kind of thing. So this is why I decided to do a first quarter wrap up. So in another 3 months I'll do a second quarter wrap up, etc, right to the end of the year. In the first quarter of 2017 I completed 11 books, I DNF'd one book, and I've read the first fifth or so of this book, which will be talked about at another time. So 3 of those were audiobooks and I completed 8 physical books. So I'm going to be wrapping these books up in reverse order of enjoyment, i.e. I'm going to be talking about the one I enjoyed the least first, all the way up to my favourite book of 2017 so far. The first one I want to talk about is obviously the one I DNF'd, and that is The Collected Tales of Nikolai Gogol. I like the video I talked about it in more detail up here, but I had some severe issues with the translation. I found it really difficult to get through and really clunky, so I just DNF'd it after about halfway through the second story. I just knew I wasn't going to get on with it, which was a shame because I really wanted to read it. I really wanted to love it, but unfortunately I just didn't. So my least favourite book I actually completed is The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. I've not disliked any of the books I've read so far this year. I have enjoyed them, but unfortunately this was the least favourite for me. I listened to this on audiobook in preparation for the song Rising, which is the 3rd book in the series coming out soon. This is a futuristic society fantasy sci-fi book focusing on clairvoyance. The first book, The Bone Season, I read when that first came out a couple of years ago, I think 2014, and I enjoyed that, but I've got a few more problems with it as I'm going through. I find it quite clunky, unfortunately. I found the jargon extremely unsettling, and the world building I think is extremely lacking. Good points though, I find it really fast paced, there was some good twists, and the characters are quite morally grey and they do make you really think, but on the whole, not a favourite of mine so far. Next up is Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 5th book in the Mistborn series. It's the 2nd in the Wax and Wayne trilogy. I think that if I read this separately from the Mistborn series, as in I hadn't read the Mistborn series, one, I wouldn't really understand what was going on, but secondly, I actually think I would enjoy it more because whenever I'm reading this, I just have how epic and amazing the Mistborn series was in my mind. I loved it so much, so I can't help but compare when it's set in the same world. I did enjoy this much more than Alloy of Law, which is the first in the Wax and Wayne series. This is a high fantasy series. The original trilogy is the first book is sort of a heist. The magic system is based on ingesting metals, or storing properties in metals. It's a really excellent series. The second series has more of a country and western type feeling, sort of gunslinging, steampunk vibes, which is enjoyable. This series is far too complex for me to describe just in this one book, but you really must pick up Final Empire, which is here. That's the first in the original series, and it's one of my all-time favourite trilogies. Amazing characters, evil overlord, caste system, band of friends on a heist, really interesting. This also good, but again, just not up to the standard of the first series. Next, I'm going to talk about Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan. This one I actually don't have an individual review for, but I did really love it. The first book, this is the 2nd in the Lady Trent Memoirs series, the first being An Actual History of Dragons, which was one of my favourite books of 2016. Again, this was a favourite, but quite low down on the list because I love all of these books. This is a Fantasy of Manners series, so Lady Trent, who at this point in her life is known as Isabella Camhurst, is a lady adventurer in an alternate world equivalent of the Victorian era. There is a lot of dragon elements in it, but it's also there isn't that much magic for a fantasy world. It's much more about social convention. Our main character herself, she's looking back on her life. She's got a very strong authorial voice going through, and they are a lot of fun. In this installment, Isabella Camhurst is travelling to a place called Bayembe, which, like I say, I think is a South America equivalent, with her companions Mr. Wilker and Natalie, and they are hunting for Moolish swamp worms, which are the dragons of that area. But the region they're going to has a Skirling colony. Skirling, I say, is the country they come from. It's at war with various other places, lots of different ethnic groups. There's also places that are occupied by other ones, and I found it quite confusing. That being said, I still really love this series. Definitely going to continue it and finish it. Our main character, Isabella, she's so interesting, she's so driven, she's a career woman. All the different characters are so interesting and well drawn. There's always interesting social interactions going on between them all, which really bring it forward. There's some really sweet moments within this. I did love it, but like I say, couple of flaws. Next two I have to talk about, I'm sort of talking about together, and that is Carry On and Fangirl, both by Rainbow Rowell. I do prefer Fangirl of the two of these, but I sort of want to talk about them together. I listened to both of these on audiobook. I have a separate review of Fangirl. My review up on my channel though of Carry On is from all the way back in 2015 when it was released. I do love both of these books. Fangirl follows our main character, Kath, in her first year of college. She moves from Lincoln to Omaha, Nebraska to go to university, and she struggles to fit in there. She's definitely an introvert. There's a lot of things that have gone on in her past. She's very worried about her dad, who's been left alone. She's got problems with her twin sister, who's sort of abandoned her, and all the while she's writing a fan fiction about Simon Snow, which is kind of a Harry Potter equivalent, though Harry Potter does also can exist in this world. She falls in love, she makes friends, she struggles with her coursework. There's a lot of things going on. It covers the whole year, and I love this book. And Carry On is Rainbow Rowell's version of the fan fiction that Kath is writing in Fangirl. It's quite tropey, but in a lovely way. It's chosen one trope, mentor trope, magical school trope, all these things go into it, but written in Rainbow Rowell's own style. It's quite self-aware in that way, but it's lovely. Simon Snow is a chosen one. He's been told his whole life he is the most powerful wizard in the world, and he is going to be the one to bring down the insidious Humdrum, which is the threat on the magical world at this time. He has an arch nemesis, Baz, who he shares a room with, who is totally irrevocably in love with him. But Simon isn't really aware of this till much later on in the book. It's written between their two perspectives with a few others thrown in. It's a really interesting magic system. There's a lot of twists and turns. Both of these were excellent on audiobook, and I really recommend you to check them out. Like I say, Fangirl resonates with me just that little bit more because I can see so much of myself in Kath. Next, I wanted to talk about Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is the most recent individual review I've had up on my channel, if you want to go see it. So I won't talk about this too much here. This is a Victorian novel, and it's an ensemble cast, life and love novel set in this town called Middlemarch. And it's sort of various outlying villages. This is quite a storm curve novel. It took me the whole of March to finish, but I loved it. I just read it in a couple of other books at the same time, and it is around the 900 page mark. I also listened to this on audiobook. There is an audiobook narrated by Juliet Stevenson, and it is excellent. I thoroughly recommend it. She does all the voices perfectly and the right amount. She's got so much humour in her voice, really, really expressive, and that helped me get through it as well. I listened to it on a couple of drives. It was perfect. This has happy marriages, failed marriages, failing currently marriages. There's a couple of annoying characters in it, but you like to be annoyed by them. They were really well drawn and interesting. There's a lot of character growth in several of the characters, a few great observations of issues at the time, and yeah, I really enjoyed this in the end. Again, I found a couple of bits a bit slow, but towards the end I was totally on the edge of my seat. So much drama happening. I found myself gasping at the audiobook and going ooh, and you know, some of the interactions people were having. It was just great, and totally worth the slog of a couple, like maybe the middle 100 pages. I read this as part of Middlemarch March, which was sort of run by Jennifer over Insert Literary Pun Here, which I will link below, and it was a lot of fun just hearing what other people were saying on Twitter and Instagram, and she made a few great videos along the way as well about it, so thoroughly recommend checking all those out if you wanted to pick up Middlemarch, which again I recommend you to do. Link to my full review below. Next, I want to talk about kind of a surprising book for me, and that is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. The longer it's been since I read this book, the more fondly I look back on it, which is interesting to me. At the time I had a few mixed feelings, but the more it's sunk in and I've managed to think about it, I really enjoyed this book and I'm really, really happy that I read it. This is in some ways kind of similar to Middlemarch in that it has a lot of different characters and a lot of different relationships, all of which sort of intertwine and interlink, and again is set over a number of years. Our main characters are Anna Karenina and her affair slash doomed love affair with Vronsky. We have Oblonsky and his wife Dolly, and we have also Levin and Kitty, who he is madly in love with, but whose head is turned at the start by Vronsky. Get yourself an edition that has a list of characters at the start, because it really, really helped me. Mine has a list of all the characters at the start, and it tells you who they all are, and so you can go back to the start and figure out as you go along, because you can go like 100 pages without fairly major characters being mentioned, and then when they are, you can flip back to the start. That is my tip. Like I say, I really, really enjoyed this. This had all of life in it. It had ups, downs, marriages, divorce, death, birth, a lot of politics, again, maybe the odd slow section, but I said this in my review as well. There's like a 50-page section where Levin, who's one, like I say, is one of our main characters, is out in the fields with the peasant workers and he's mowing grass. And he's really invested in the work, and he feels like he's learning about his country and, you know, about Russia and the relationship with the man and the land, and he's mowing this grass and having all these thoughts, and you're so engrossed, even though literally all that's happening is that he's cutting grass, but you're so there with him. And it's really powerful writing, and I don't let that put you off, because there's a lot of drama as well. There's a lot of really dramatic moments, a lot of moments where you're really on the edge of your seat. Excellent, excellent writing. Really recommend Anna Karenina. These two I also want to talk about together, and that is Ship of Magic and The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. These are the first two books in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is the second trilogy in the Realm of the Elderlings series. I'm going to put them down, they're super heavy. I enjoyed The Mad Ship slightly more than Ship of Magic, but they're very, very similar, which I think is an amazing achievement for the second book in a trilogy to be slightly better than the first book, because generally I feel like they either dip in the middle or they go downhill. The first tends to be really, really good, which it was. But The Mad Ship was even better. This is a high fantasy series set in a trader town called Bingtown, and also in a pirate bay, main town of which is called Devytown. We have a lot of different characters, again, all sort of interweaving. You can see what kind of books I really like. The main fantasy element of this series is that there are these boats that become alive after 3 successive generations of the same family have died aboard their decks. The boats become alive, they're therefore much more easy to manipulate, sail. Families generally become very, very wealthy. When their live ship quickens after the 3 generations have died, they're able to access waters that normal ships aren't able to, and therefore have much more lucrative trade. So they are a massive asset to the family, as well as sort of becoming parts, like members of the family, because they are able to speak, they are alive. Obviously, live ships. This series is amazing. There's so many tense moments, you care about so many of the characters. They change wildly across the couple of books, and amazing development. I can't wait to read the third one. I've got individual reviews for both of these books that I've read so far up already. Really, really loved it. The last 2 books I want to talk about, as having read in the first quarter of 2017, are now all-time favourite books of mine. I just really adored them. The first is Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. This is a historical fiction written in the 80s. It spans all the way from the 1920s up until the 1980s. It's set in Alabama. It talks about race, friendship, love. There's a lesbian romance, family drama and love and cooking. There's so much soul in this book. We go back and forward through time. Again, has a really strong narrative voice going throughout this, and it's just lovely. Everyone should read this book. I'm going to say that about the next book as well, but really required reading. Absolutely gorgeous. Can't wait to watch the movie, though I've heard it's different in a few quite important ways from this one, but great LGBT representation, especially for being written 30 years ago. Just a lot of heart, sweetness, lightness, passion. Oh, just beautiful. Please pick this up. And the last book I have to talk about, my favourite book so far 2017, is Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is 300 pages long, so it's much shorter than most of the other books I've read this year so far, but it is just stunning. This is from the perspective of Kambili. She is a young Nigerian girl who lives with her mother, father and brother. Her father is very righteous, very religious man. He's very high standing in their community, but he is very abusive at home. Because there's a military coup in Nigeria at the time, her and her brother are sent to live with her aunt's family, and it's so different from what she's used to. There's so much love and they respect one another, and her mind is open. She's stunned initially, but she learns what family really means, what it means to be cherished and thought of as worthy. It's gorgeous, it's sad, it's so sad, but just amazing. In a lot of ways it's very, very quiet, but there's some shocking moments in it, and I just loved this book. I'm so excited to read more of Adichie's work very, very soon. One of my all-time ultimate favourite books now. So there we go, that is my first quarter wrap up. I've read some excellent books so far this year. I've been doing really well with picking what I've been buying, and I'm so excited. And I'm so excited to read more by all of the authors I read this year. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you loved them, do you agree with how I've ranked them? Let me know what you've been loving so far this year as well. Also, you can check out all the individual reviews I've had for these books, which will be linked below. Also down there is my Twitter and Instagram and Goodreads, all which you can follow me on. My last video was a TBR for the Tome Topple, and my next video is a non-fiction haul. So please subscribe to see more from me. I usually upload about twice a week, and I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. Bye.